So, we're going to talk about these movies, and we're going to try this beet hot chocolate recipe.
Oh my god.
I put
Okay.
sugar in yours. The recipe
Oh.
didn't call for sugar, so.
Okay.
But I tasted it
And
first, and I
it's-
was like, James's tongue on it.
Yeah.
So I put a little raw cane sugar in yours.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, I'm not looking forward to this. Maybe I better not drink it. on
Elvis is
camera.
climbing on the plant again.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesus.
The juice is orange bell pepper, which is actually pretty yum. I mean, it's gotten to the point where we've had it so regularly that it tastes like Kool-Aid or something to me. I like it.
Yeah, I don't like it as much as that, but it's good. It's really good for juice.
Yeah. And I'm eating a golden beet. James is too, with his meal.
So did you want to start talking about?
Well,
While you're
which
eating,
one do you want to talk
start
about? Do you want to
well,
talk
I
about
don't know.
DC's Legends of Tomorrow?
I didn't really watch. Oh, is that DC Comics? it's a DC Comics. Okay, so it's a comic book thing. So it's it's funny. I have lower standards, I guess, comic book stuff. So it's I wondered why it was kind of like for kids or something like that. Well, not really kids, but young adults or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, maybe it's not that bad. So it's good for sleeping too. But like I kind of occasionally glance at it when I'm studying
So this is the fourth
Egyptology
season.
or whatever. Yeah,
Fourth season, you were wondering.
So they've been around, yeah. So it's actually not that bad. So what can I say?
I don't care for the show.
Yeah. Well, I don't care for it that much either, but it's
No.
it's not bad. No,
It's
like
that one blonde.
don't waste money on it.
No.
Waste time on it. You
I
can
don't
sleep
know.
to it, study it, do it.
Well, yeah, I get
Look up
some
at
other
every so
things done.
occasionally,
Like I
you
read a
know.
couple books
Yeah.
while
There
it
you
was
go.
on.
See, just yeah.
But
So.
that blonde woman who's okay, there's two blonde women that are in a relationship and they both have leadership roles.
Yeah. Funny thing is, they
The one
managed to get them so you can distinguish them apart.
Yes, I know.
So often when people get, when they cast like two brunettes in a movie, guys or
But the
women,
one
yeah,
that seems
it's
like a
just
tough fighter, I can't stand her.
Oh, the taller one?
Is she taller?
I don't know. One is taller than the other. Anyway, yeah, I don't like that character. She's a rough, tough character as portrayed. And maybe in real life. Because they're not
Too
that.
bossy.
They're
Like I
chopsticks.
was overhearing one part where
Yeah.
she said to the group, like somebody was like, "How are we gonna fight this?" or whatever, and she said, "As a team." And then you do this, you do that, and it's like, wow, that's an interesting
Oh,
cue.
yeah.
Teamwork.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Here, let me dictate
Yeah.
how we will work as
Yeah.
a team.
When it comes to management, there's always an I in team. They always misspell it. At least in maybe not so much when they're writing it out, but when it actually comes to
Cauliflower pulp
carrying
is
it out.
so good, to make nuggets with, to make all sorts of things. So good.
Yeah, I like cauliflower. It's very nice. Even that thing that was given to us was good enough. You know what I'm saying? That it was almost like cauliflower porridge. Yeah.
Oh, that,
Mm,
yeah.
Yeah, that was.
It was supposed to be instant mashed potato-like, but without potatoes.
Yeah. It was quite good. Yeah. Good enough. So, what else did you want to talk about?
The Right with Anthony Hopkins.
It says on the back, the best film about exorcism since The Exorcist. And, Exorcist goes back, 1973 or something like that. So no one's bothered since, really to put out a serious film about exorcism, I suppose. So 73, this is a 2019 production, was it? current?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, presumably it's something like 50s.
It might be
and
2011.
Oh, yeah. So someone waited 40 years or so to come out with an exorcism. Yeah, maybe it's because I wasn't raised Catholic. This stuff just leaves them cold, you know. So,
I don't find it scary. It's like,
you know,
it's not believable at all.
presumably based on
It says
some
it's
schmuck who's
inspired by true events.
10,000 exorcisms. I'm going, wow, that's like 10,000 crimes against humanity, almost, you know. I don't know what exactly is involved. Like, there's I think people who do exorcisms are possessed. Someone should do an exorcism on them.
Well, I guess in the show. Well, I don't want to give away the show, just in case you're
Yeah.
into that sort of thing. And
If you're into that sort of thing, grab the movie or whatever,
Whatever.
but just don't bother me with your crazy ideas. So, yeah.
He Was a Quiet Man, starring Christian Slater, and William H. Macy was in that, as well as John Goodman, I guess. I've missed John
I think John
Goodman.
Goodman was in it. Maybe
I don't watch movies that closely. I'm busy doing other things.
Yeah, it's amazing though.
So
She
I
might not
sometimes-
watch them that closely, but she's still faster on the draw at figuring things out than I am. So,
Well, that one was so great.
This one
It was
awesome.
so worth watching. These other two things, maybe don't give them your time, but that one, it's a must-see. It's great. It's the whole movie, you're following it, and it ends up being a lot that what actually happened
different
was
than
a
what you
lot.
expected. Kind of like a surprise ending,
And
but it's not one of those.
It gets you thinking
Yeah.
about things. I mean, recently we watched a documentary about Columbine, and there was a lot of talk about, at the time, I guess, the victims or whatever, the targets were selected. It wasn't just random shooting or anything like that. On the case of this, you see Christian Slater is holding a bunch of dynamite strapped together, and that's not at all what happens in the movie. And I think it's a bit of a, people often think, oh well, when people do some sort of terrorist attack where they just target a whole group of people, it's the same thing as the
Columbine thing.
yeah, and it's not, it doesn't, there's, when people are selective about things, you really have to look at, okay, well, who were the targets, and
If they're picking out personalities.
yeah, and determine a pattern. And honestly, if you don't, then it's doomed to happen again, because these people have to learn from things like this. They happen, and it's a tragedy, and it's more of a tragedy if we just try to pretend that it's all the same thing, you know.
So it's important to emphasize that people are bullying don't deserve getting whacked, but they deserve something, and there's way too much of it going on. And it's at work, it's at school, it's at other places.
It's everywhere. And it's systemic. It's through our whole system. And
Well, it's everywhere probably in the world. really.
probably. But I mean, while you're watching this movie and you're seeing this guy's life and stuff like that, you know it. You know people that have been like that. You know people in this kind of same situation, and you see the people that he's working with, and you're like, yeah, I've worked with that guy or whatever, you know. And it's a time that it has to stop. We have to stop ignoring and accepting this kind of abuse. It's just too much. People, and honestly, like this, the character in this, he was a quiet man, right? He's Christian Slater does an amazing job. I have to say, I didn't think that Christian Slater had versatility as an actor until I watched this, and I'm like, wow, That's a completely different person he's played in this than ever before. And so this character is an introvert. And I've been talking a lot about the dominant submission thing. And the introverts are up on the top. So you have the reds on the one side and you have the blues on the other. And he's obviously supposed to be blue. You see him working. It looks like he's doing some sort of accounting or something like that. He's crossing off, he's going through numbers or whatever. And a lot of blues end up being accountants and stuff like that. They're not all scientists, you know, but anyway, he's doing actual work, and there's people in the office that are passing around a toy football and doing this and that and whatever, and he's just, it's anyway,
Getting their money for nothing.
so I don't know really what to say about the movie because I don't want to give it away, because everyone needs to watch it. It's just on a level, just as art, it is worth watching. They did such a good job with the movie. The acting is great. Everything was really well thought out. But there's a message there also that is very important. So, I mean, we could handle to maybe do without some of the people in society, but I don't think ever the blues. You know, I don't think we should ever lose those from society. So if you're getting to a point where you're feeling like you're invisible or something like that, I definitely wouldn't say go to, like in this story, there's work psychiatrist and stuff like that. I wouldn't go to work and, you know, to go to that person. But honestly, I mean, I value that. I value those people, and they're frankly some of the most valuable people in our society. So if you're feeling like that, you have to somehow find somebody passive, find another passive person that can help you get through it, help you go through the daily grind and or whatever, help you continue, because the world can't do without you. You're important.
So, I know you guys have been hanging on the edge of your seats for me to finish this book and finish up my review of it. Hippie cult leader, the last words of Charles Manson. They didn't even say Charlie, eh? You know, treating him with respect that maybe doesn't deserve.
I can set it up here for you. Yeah, my chocolate's in my hand. It doesn't need to be on the table. There we go.
So,
I see there's a diagram in there.
there's lots of diagrams. They're actually
I wouldn't have
building up to
expected
the same. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. But that's what I'd gone through when I did the preliminary review. And I basically got the thing right because the diagrams are so well done. So this is very new, I think, this year. Chuckles died back in 2017, I think, a couple of years back. Should have died of embarrassment, I suppose, but he didn't. Hung around a long time. And this guy's saying that the theory behind how Charles did the killings using other people is wrong. You know, like Charlie saying the world was going to end. Had the people out there killing, trying to make it look as though it was black power people doing it, and trying to get the black people to rise up and kill almost all the white people. And I guess he was supposed to, he and his followers were supposed to be the superior whites who'd survive. and then they'd rise against the black people who killed off the white people, and then he'd dominate. So
I'm rewarding myself with this stracciatella. What did you say?
stracciatella.
Sweet plus wafers,
It's Italian.
because they're delicious.
Yeah. Multilingual on the back.
Yes.
Thank you, Italian people.
And
Or,
they're supposed to taste like ice cream. There's chocolate chip look like there. And they look just as beautiful in reality as in the package. James gonna have one for dessert, and I will have the other one. Now, you were saying about Charles Manson.
Anyway, this guy says he comes up with, I think, maybe a bit more sensible thing. Charlie, like he's saying, Charlie really didn't control him that much. Yeah, he did. He controlled these people. These people were pretty bad in and of themselves. Like they did some pretty gruesome killings. The ones that actually were involved in killings. And some of the other ones, were dangerous too. There's a reason why. Some of them have gotten several, have been paroled several times, but the governor of California just blocked them.
Really?
No, they're not getting. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what happened was that back in '75 or something like that, Lynette Squeaky is her nickname, got a gun, got right up next to Gerald Ford, the president, put it to his head, and then pulled the trigger. She claimed that she'd made sure it wasn't loaded. It's serious stuff. So they don't trust anyone, and I wouldn't trust them now, right? I don't necessarily believe they tended to have guns that were old, heirlooms and things like that weren't well off. So, I wouldn't trust them. They were kind of like a political entity, political religious, and stuff like that. But the motivation seems to have been more like Charlie shot a black guy in the stomach, and Charlie was paranoid. He was using amphetamines, as were apparently all of his flunkies. And so he was paranoid that this guy was a Black Panther. The Black Panthers were going to come after him. And he might have been rapping a little bit about the end of the world and stuff like that. But I think it was more like he was doing that to use people. I don't know if he really believed it. But then he got Hell's Angels group that they have a biker group, I should say. I can't remember, something Secret Satans or something like that. Apparently the group wrapped up in the mid-'70s, thank heavens, but he let them hang out in the ranch and share drugs around. The main attraction, I think, for the Angels was sharing the women around. Girls. Some of them were girls, there's no doubt about it. And then they got burned in a drug deal. The guys were a problem, and so Charlie killed someone, or he thought he'd killed someone, but the guy survived. I think he took 2 bullets in the stomach. Bernard Crow was his name, nicknamed Lots of Papa. They've got some amazing nicknames of people involved in this. So Charlie Manson called himself, he turned his name around, Son of Man, right, which is with an epithet Jesus used to describe himself. So amazing nickname. Anyway, so one a guy that hung around with Chucky, called Bobby Beausoleil, a beautiful name, a beautiful son, is a French name, and he's his nickname was Cupid, right? And he had a way with the women. I think he wasn't that tall of a guy, but he kind of had some pretty good looks on him. And maybe he still does. I don't know. I think he's still alive. But what happened was he got burned. Well, these stupid sons of Satan, or whatever they were called, something Satans. Some of them got hold of Bobby Beausoleil. He's a young pup, right? And they said, "Hey, you burned us we gave you $1,000 to produce some sort of stuff. I don't know if it was meth or amphetamines or cocaine or something like that. And we got poisoned with it. And what they were doing was we want our money back."
Well, you see, they'd fronted it to him, then they'd given it to this guy, Gary Hinman, who's a grad student at UCLA. He wasn't a flunky by any means. And that stuff would have been dispersed, right? Eh, but you deal with bikers, you don't know exactly what you're dealing with. So Beausoleil, he recognizes now that they were just ripping him. They wanted the money back, but they weren't going to kill him. But they were saying they were. So he went to Hinman with a couple of Charlie's flunky women, and they had a gun or something like that, and they were saying, we want our money back, and of course Hinman wouldn't have had it. And so it goes back and forth, like they start fighting. Hinman gets the gun away from him or something like that, and they kind of settle it down. Meanwhile, someone phones Charlie and saying, we're having trouble with Hinman, like he's threatening to kill Bobby Beausoleil. So Charlie turns up with a big, I guess, almost like a Civil War saber or something like that, busts in the door and slices this guy, kind of like a 5-inch cut, 1 inch deep. So 1 inch deep on the face, cuts off his ear and stuff like that. It's just busted through the door. Does that to Hinman. So Hinman starts pumping blood and stuff like that. And they're going, what do we do? We can't take him to hospital. We're in trouble. There's a drug deal. We've been holding him and stuff like that. And, apparently the girls or women tried to sew him up, right, with needle and thread. And for a while it was working, and then there was a blood clot that they disturbed, and it starts pumping, and they're going, geez, we can't take him to hospital. He might survive. We can't leave him here. We got to kill him or we're in trouble, right? I think Charlie had taken off by that time. So Bobby Beausoleil, he didn't really want to do it. And I think his story is true, because they'd been there. They tried to sew him up, right?
Yeah.
And it went on for days. They were sitting there with him for days.
Gosh.
Yeah, exactly right. They didn't know what to do. Right? Stupid. So finally, Beausoleil just stabs him to death, right? So now they're stuck with 2 murders, and they're still, the sons of Satan are kind of leave them or stuff like that. When they find out that Hinman got killed, they go, yeah, this wasn't our intention and all that sort of stuff. So they kind of disperse.
Yeah.
Now they got no protection from what they think is the Black Panthers coming after them. And so they want to blame. I think Charlie told them, with Gary Hinman's blood, draw piggies on there, which is presumably referring to cops. It refers to that song "Piggies" by the Beatles on the White Album. And then they drew a paw print, to try to suggest the Black Panthers. It's way too abstruse. They should have said the Black Panthers did this or something like that, right? Trying to get to the cops to take out the Black Panthers. So they're saying, well, no one got the idea. Now, understand, like this guy's pointing it out, that was August the 6th. I never realized this connection with Gary Hinman. That's when he gets whacked. And then 2 days later, you see, they want to make it look like not a copycat killing, but that it's the Black Panthers doing a bunch of different killings. And so 2 days later, that's when Sharon Tate, who's the movie actress, got killed, along with 3 people that were staying with her, and then at Roman Polanski's place. She was married to Roman Polanski. He's still alive, I think. Movie director. He did Rosemary's Baby and Tess and a few other things. And so they whack those people, and then a poor guy that was just there to get some sort of a electronic device fixed or something like that by the caretaker who lived in a house outside. I mean, this is a rich person's place, right? The caretaker was left, undisturbed. But this poor guy ran across these people just as they were breaking into the kind of like the compound and stuff like that at the gate, and they just shot him, cut him off, and stuff like that. And so there were 5 people killed there, and then the next night they killed, and they were drawing things like dyed piggies and blood on their mouth and stuff like that. Actually, they really killed, I don't know, Sharon Tate was 9 months pregnant. Can you imagine that?
That's
So
terrible.
that kid could have survived, possibly, if it had been premature. At any rate, yeah, it's just awful stuff. And then the next night they killed they'd be business people, right? The Bianca, what is it, Bianca? I've forgotten the name. I'm glitching on. But one, Rosemary and Leno, I'm glitching on. It doesn't matter. Anyway, they were kind of business people. They lived in a nice place, and unfortunately, the person who lived next door hung with Charlie Manson. So Charlie had been there, and some of his buddies had been there. Same sort of thing where Sharon Tate was at. Like Tex Watson, who is the main killer, definitely at the Sharon Tate thing. He'd been there maybe 6 different times. With a guy called Terry Melcher, who used to produce the early Birds albums, and the son of Doris Day. Isn't that incredible? The people that Charlie and his flunkies were hanging with. They used to hang with Neil Young, and the Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson, and there were others. There was the one guy who hung with, was a friend with this True guy who lived next door to the La Biancas, or whatever their name was. He hung with this guy called Kaufman, who later on was a roadie, like for Frank Zappa, a whole bunch of people. So they were kind of like this. It shows how stupid that music hippie community was. Like what was Neil Young thinking? I don't think anyone ever accused Neil Young of being that bright. He does like model railroad. He's a pretty innocuous kind of guy. And he actually bought one model railroad company, right, just to keep it going. Lionel, it's called, or Lionel. Anyway, so these bozos were killing, and at Charlie's behest, basically. I don't think Charlie killed anyone except he shot that black guy, and he didn't do it terribly well. He probably wouldn't have been that effective at killing him, I'm sure. And then he kind of started off Gary Hidden, right? So bad temper, and it kind of goes into territory, and wouldn't help that he was on methamphetamine. Up till that point in time, he'd done a lot of time in reform schools, or whatever they call them down there, juvenile hall, and in jail. But it was for pimping and junk like that, petty theft and so on. Maybe not so petty theft. So this is a counter advertisement for methamphetamines. Don't mess around with it. Make you into something that you don't want to be. I think definitely what other people are into. So it's just, and so Charlie hit these places. Now understand, he didn't want to hit people that were totally innocent. He didn't like Terry Melcher. Not so much. This guy, I think, gets it right. It's Charlie would get money and they'd just give it away. And some people figure, hey, he didn't like Terry Melcher, who'd lived in Polanski residence before. Just he had gotten out of it. I think he's actually afraid of Charlie. That's why he moved out. But there are other possible explanations. And he didn't like Melcher because Melcher promised $5,000 to him, or something like that, for one of Charlie's songs, and they never came across with the money. It wasn't the money; it was the principle of the thing. Is what this guy says, and well, that kind of makes sense. So, so that's why they thought they were killing Terry Melcher. They didn't realize there would be a lot of people there. Terry Melcher, maybe someone else. And then apparently someone who lived in the La Bianca residence before they moved in had complained about this, like it was apparently a weird place, maybe like almost like an acreage right in the middle of Los Angeles. And it was only these 2 houses, kind of, you can't see the street from the houses or vice versa, but they're right next door to each other. Well, I mean, this other place where True was living